Our first presentation this morning is a panel discussion on the process of and business considerations for innovation in biomanufacturing using supplier and end-user perspectives. The moderator is Tom Ranselhoff, who is Vice President at Bioprocess Technology Consultants. Please welcome Tom.
Good morning, everyone. Well, we're looking forward to a great panel discussion this morning on a topic that I think is very important to our industry, which is how we adopt new technology and what we have to do from a business perspective to make the case to bring a new technology into our industry. So we've built a great panel for you this morning to discuss the topic and get into that in a minute. I just have a few introductory slides to show to get the discussion kicked off. And the example I'm going to use is one that we're all familiar with, single-use bioreactors. Most of you probably are aware, and we'll hear more from Stuart about this in a few minutes, that this was a new technology in our industry not too long ago. And I actually got a photo from a tweet that GE Healthcare did a year ago when it was the 20th anniversary of the launch of the first wave bioreactor. So this is a shot of the very first wave bioreactor that was produced, and that was 20 years ago. And fast forward to the right, you can see where we are today. We've got three major company offerings at 2,000-liter scale with single-use bioreactors. The technology is being adopted widely in the industry. And we still have the GE wave bioreactor as well, as well as a number of other new offerings in the space. And we've come a long way in 20 years. So this, I think, example shows that as an industry we can adopt new technology, but it certainly takes some time. And this next slide just shows a little bit of data from our BioTrack database where we track trends in supply and demand for manufacturing capacity. And it shows the adoption rate of single-use technology compared to stainless steel conventional bioreactors. And without going into too much detail in the data, what this shows on the left-hand side is the number of single-use in blue and stainless steel in green bioreactors. And on the right-hand side, the volume, the total volume industry-wide of single-use and stainless steel bioreactors. And what you can see is that the single-use bioreactors are growing more quickly as we forecast from 5 years ago, 2011 on the left to 2020 on the right. The single-use bioreactors are growing more quickly than stainless steel, but they still represent a very small fraction of the total installed base of capacity in the industry. So I think this is a good example of how we adopt technology. It definitely is something that as an industry we're able to do, but also the fact that even for technologies with a fairly compelling business case, it takes us a while to do that. And so what we want to explore today is why that is. And you know, we have a number of challenges in adopting new technology in our industry. We're a very conservative industry for good reason. There are significant costs to adopting new technology and risks. And nobody wants to really go first to be the company that adopts a new technology the first time in a clinical or commercial process. There are severe penalties for delays and setbacks in our pharmaceutical programs. So we have to be sure if we're adopting a new technology, it's not going to slow the time to market or into the clinic. And particularly as we compress our timelines, it's hard to find a good time to implement new technologies. There are really obstacles at all stages of development. And finally, I'd argue there's relatively little investment as an industry in new technology development and implementation compared to maybe some other industries. But as an industry, we're forced to consider new technologies because we have needs that aren't being met with our current technologies. We have a continual need to move faster, bring our products to the clinic more quickly and with less capital. And the expectations, both industry-wide and from regulators, of our understanding of a process are increasing. So the quality expectations are increasing. And finally, as we mature, we are facing factors that will drive us eventually to worry more about our manufacturing costs than maybe we do today. And so this does drive evolution over time. And so given that, the questions that we hope to explore today are, how can we improve our approach to implementation of new technologies, and how do companies make decisions around this? And finally, what is a compelling business case? What are the key drivers? So to help us think through that, we have a great panel this morning, and in preparing for this, one of my panelists sent me a blog that said that why panels stink. It was basically, and one of the things was that the moderator spends way too long introducing the panelists, and it takes forever. So I've boiled my introductions down to some pithy remarks. Hopefully that will speed things up. Our first panelist is Todd Menkhaus. He's a professor of chemical engineering at South Dakota School of Mines and Technology and a co-founder of NanoPore, which is developing some very interesting high-capacity, high-flow membrane chromatography technology based on Todd's work. And this is a technology that's very early stage of development, so we wanted to get a wide range of perspectives, and Todd's a great example of an innovator with a new technology. John Bonham Carter, who you don't see up here because he's stuck in Chicago or on his way to San Diego right now, is a director at Repligen, and he was kind enough to actually send his slides in with a video of him speaking, so he'll be here in spirit. You'll see that in a minute. But he was the inventor and founder of a company called Refine, which developed the ATF technology, which is being used more and more widely in industry today. And Stuart McNall, who's a SVP of Business Development at KBI Biopharma. He's currently in a business development role, but don't let that title fool you. Despite his current wanderings on the dark side, Stuart has legitimate credentials as a gearhead, having spearheaded the adoption of single-use technology at Fujifilm, his previous employer, among other technical accomplishments. And finally, last but not least, Bernie Heiga, Senior Director of External Supply of Biotherapeutics and Vaccines at Pfizer. He's worked at Pfizer for about 10 years since their acquisition of COVAX. And one thing I've noticed about Bernie, we've known each other for years throughout his career, is that no matter where he is, he always gets the tough problems. So a great person to talk about how to use technology to solve those. So without further ado, I'll pass the baton. The format is we're going to have each of our panelists give a brief introductory remarks on their experience with new technology adoption. Then we're going to open this up to questions from the audience. And if you all are out of questions, I'll have a few prepared for the discussion. So I think we move directly now to Todd, and thanks for your participation.
Okay, well, thanks, Tom. You don't know this, but I changed the title of your panel. So we are a technology startup company, a very young company that's developing a high-efficiency separation material that we're trying to get integrated into biomanufacturing. So we're not a big supplier, we're not an end user, we're the one that's trying to innovate that new technology and get it integrated into biomanufacturing. So this is a little bit different perspective maybe than some of the other panelists. So to start out, I just want to give you a real quick overview of our technology and a little bit about our company, and then I'll get into our perspective of how we're trying to integrate that into biomanufacturing. We're an advanced materials company that's developing these high-efficiency separation materials based out of nanofibers. So very high surface area, very high permeability, provides a lot of really unique features for both size-based, and what we're really trying to capitalize on is the adsorptive separation mechanisms of nanofibers. So a real quick overview of how this compares to some of the other standards, the commercial standards that are out there, and some other new technologies that are being developed. Ours is the one on the left there. Very high surface area, very defined pore structure that improves permeability and uniform flow distribution for very accessible, scalable processing. Some of the other ones competing against resin beads and other membranes, we have advantages in capacity and flow rate over different competitors. So where we're at in terms of our commercialization, we have developed a lot of our own products. They're out there being tested both by end users and potential partners. Very small scale at this point, up to about a 30 ml capsule is about as far as we've developed. We do have a lot of partners that are also just looking at functionalizing the base nanofibers with their own ligands for adsorptive separations. And then we also do a lot of contract product development for specialty separations that certain clients may have. So, a little bit more about our perspective on integrating new technologies into the biomanufacturing space. So when we first started the company, it was all about the product. How can we make the product better? How is it going to perform to the standards of the industry? And most important to us as we were developing this product was we wanted to make sure it was something the industry needed. It had to be getting that industry pull into the marketplace rather than us trying to shove something in there that nobody really wanted. So we spent a lot of time talking to people that knew what they wanted, how they wanted to get there. We talked to people like Tom that have huge networks and really got connected to the industry to understand more about what they really wanted and how we could meet those needs. At the same time, we were kind of juggling this balancing act between making sure that we had enough IP protection, that we were protected, and getting our name out there and getting our products out there so that people recognized who we were and could start using our materials. So we started our IP strategy very early on and have built that with follow-on generations of the product. And we thought this was really important not only to protect ourselves, but as we started having partnering discussions, we wanted to make sure that that value was protected for potential partners. So as we kept moving forward and started to get more interest in our materials, it became less maybe about the actual performance of the product, and people started asking a lot more difficult questions, like, how are you going to make a whole bunch of this? Or, do you need a partner to really get this into the marketplace? And so we started having to ask ourselves these same really tough questions of, how are we going to produce large amounts of this material very consistently over and over from batch to batch? How are we going to make the material that is going to be able to be integrated into a GMP process without a lot of problems? The types of questions that Tom was just asking. And how do we develop that reputation in the industry that people are going to want to start purchasing our materials either directly from us, or do we want to work through supply partners that may have much more experience and exposure to our clients? And so now we've got into more discussions about co-development and who do we partner with and how do we partner? Do we want to partner with a company that's maybe a little bit smaller but can move maybe really rapidly, or do we want to partner with one of the really, really big companies that's going to have that influence and get us integrated into a lot of opportunities more quickly? How are we going to make that change? Do we want to work with somebody that's already established and maybe doesn't want to see that change happen? Or do we want to work with somebody that's really eager to see that change and displace that current market force that's in place? So a lot of questions that we've been asking ourselves. And as Tom said, it's a long road. We've been working on this for 6 years, and I wouldn't say we're a sensation, but it's taken 6 years to become overnight, at least be recognized within the industry as somebody that could do something. And so we've had to think about that from the start, and how are we going to fund this company? You know, we have to look long term. This isn't a 1 or 2 year process to get to sustainable revenues. It's a decade-long process to think about. So we've gone through non-dilutive funding, gotten a lot of grants, which is great, but they're very time-consuming, they're uncertain on the outcomes, and so you have to ask yourself,